So if anyone can see the laptop, then I'll just have some photos playing while I'm speaking. So nothing too high tech. Some of these photos, the dark ones, are of the Bobby Mamara, which is the boat that was attacked. It was parallel to us in the water. We were about 75 meters away, so I couldn't get in too much for detail. But you can see the Israeli boats storming up onto the Mamara, ready to attack. This is the first time these have been shown. So they haven't been enhanced or anything. It's sort of the raw photos. Then also in the slideshow, there's a few photos that I took from the day before of the Bobby Mamara and some of the passengers. U.S. Colonel Ann Wright was on board with us. I guess where do I start? I guess I'll start at the beginning. I'm assuming everybody's familiar with the whole controversy behind the illegal Gaza blockade. I might get into that a little bit, and the Freedom Flotilla. Basically, our objective was to break through the blockade because it was an act of defiance to break through that, to say we don't care what Israel says, it's illegal what they're doing. We're going to break in, we're going to bring 10,000 tons of humanitarian supplies in. Include things that they've restricted as a national security threat to the state of Israel, things like medicine, or a security threat, food, toys, cement to rebuild after the buildings are bombed, prefabricated homes. We had about 50 prefabricated homes to bring in. Real solid, tangible humanitarian supplies was going in, no weapons whatsoever. And they're checked at every port on the way to Gaza to make sure, absolutely sure, that there was nothing dangerous going in. More so than you'd ever have to do for any other type of mission, just to prove to everybody this was a clearly, solely humanitarian, peaceful mission. My job was to document everything that was happening. They knew the Israelis were going to try and stop us. Knowing that, we wanted eyewitness proof that this is what happens. They board the boat, they destroy all the media, they suppress the message, and they put out their own message. In this case, the message being that this was, I think the term was, a terrorist boat armed to the teeth with weapons when they had nothing. I think they found a slingshot, was the closest thing they found to a weapon. So basically they put that message out for a few days, the media picks up on it because it's the only information out there, and they move on to another story, and everybody believes that this was a violent mission that was going in to do evil. So, backing up again, my job was to document it, get some photos, and show the world exactly the truth of what happened. So during the attack, basically I preserved the photos as best I could. I shot as much as I could and preserved as much as I could and was able to get out with a little SD card showing what happened to our boat. So I'm going to back up again and bring back to the beginning and sort of, I guess, bring through a mundane play-by-play overview of what we did. We started in Agios Nikolaos, Crete, and that's where we prepared the boats and everything. Everybody went through training missions to learn about nonviolent resistance, how not to overreact when the Navy boards the boat so you don't get violent. That's not what we were about. So they went through a few days of training sessions about that. So that was in Agios Nikolaos. We got the boats up to speed and tested and everything. We had two boats there. Actually, the cargo boats were coming from Ireland, but the two boats there were both American flagged ships, so they came from America. Challenger 1 and Challenger 2. I was on Challenger 1. Challenger 2 actually had technical problems and wound up going back. Challenger 1 had technical problems, but the captain decided that we were going to keep going, so I wasn't too happy about that. But we were technically sinking, and he decided we're going to take the sinking boat and we're going to run past the Israeli Navy to go into Gaza. I told him in prison I wasn't too happy, but I couldn't say that when he was the captain. So, so we started at Agios Nikolaos on, I don't even remember the day now, was it a Thursday? I think the 27th, the morning of the 27th. We took off from there. We spent a couple days at sea. We had a really rough night one night. The boat got banged around quite a bit, and it wasn't a very solid boat. It was, you know, it was a yacht, a very expensive yacht, but a pleasure craft, as they call it. It's not, you know, meant to go across the Mediterranean. It's meant to, you know, go out and have some champagne and come back. So it wasn't, you know, we were rocking back and forth pretty significantly, pretty severely through the night, which I thought was normal, but I found out later it wasn't. And it actually beat up the boat to the extent where we damaged it. So we got to the eastern side of Cyprus, which is controlled by Greece, I think on the second night, the second day, I'm not sure which. And I didn't sleep much, so sort of all a blur. But we got to that point, and as we got closer to Cyprus, their police helicopters flew over, and I thought it was the Israelis, so I went into panic mode, and they said, no, you can't come within 12 miles of our shores. So that was pretty shocking for a member of the EU, Greece, to have been you know, apparently controlled or coerced by the Israeli government to not allow us to dock. So we couldn't dock on that side. So the other side of Cyprus is controlled by Turkey. So we were able to call them, and they allowed us to dock, fortunately, but not warmly. They wouldn't let us off the boat. They wanted identification, and they immediately wanted to know when we were going to leave. We said as soon as we fixed the boat, and they said, okay, 5 hours, a day, how long? You know, they wanted a time. We said, we don't know. So we wound up there about a day, fixing the boat to as much as we could. It didn't get up to 100%, but it was enough to take the boat from Famagusta, Cyprus, out to a rendezvous point in the middle of the Mediterranean to meet up with the flotilla who had been waiting for us, which we were really happy about. You know, we assumed at some point, because we were held back so much and there were so many people out there, we were only a small, you know, portion of the overall flotilla. You know, it was a great act of solidarity to wait for us and say, we're going to wait until everybody's with us and then we're going to go. So they waited for us, and so the morning we left Famagusta to go out to the Turkish boat, the plan was we were going to go out there, meet up with them. All of our passengers were going to transfer onto the Turkish boat, which is the Mavi Marmara. That's the one where the people died. That was the plan, and we got out there and got right next to them. Didn't want to transfer overnight, so we slept it off and waited my deportation order in English, and I read it. And I disagreed with it, so I signed under protest and signed my name. And I didn't really care at that point if they were going to let me back. And while we were sitting there, I was sitting with three people. One was the captain of the Turkish boat. And on the other side of him were two of my friends, Fiegra Lewin from Ireland and Ken O'Keefe from, well, he was born in California, now he's an Irish citizen. And Fiegra and Ken weren't going to leave until they saw their lawyer, and they were going to insist on that. And I didn't want to make trouble because I wanted to get my SD card out, so I signed and I went over to the other side. But they insisted on seeing a lawyer, so after I'm on the other side of the wall, and I've been strip searched and everything, and they still didn't find the damn SD card. And I could hear them over there, and I heard a whole bunch of ruckus, and come to find out later, they insisted on seeing their lawyer, so they sort of sicked the guards on them. And Fiegra, guy from Ireland, had 15 to 20 soldiers jump on top of him and start kicking and punching and beating him, because he asked for a lawyer. So he's actually meeting, I just heard this afternoon, he's meeting with the Prime Minister of Ireland to discuss that tomorrow. So, I have a great story about Fiegra, but it'd probably take too long to tell, so maybe after. But, and then Ken, who's a little bit more in your face, aggressive. I think he demanded to see his lawyer in a different way, and they didn't like that, and they beat him up bad. I mean, he was bleeding from his face, he had lacerations, cuts all over his face, and blood all down. And then they tried to put him on the bus, and they gave him water and told him to wash his face before he went on the bus, because they didn't want everybody in the Turkish plane to see that. And he said, no, I want him to see exactly what you did to me. And So they beat him up some more, and then they took him to a back room, and he didn't get on the plane with us. And eventually he was released separately. And there's a video online somewhere of him beat up really bad for demanding to see a lawyer. And for Yeager's argument, when he demanded to see a lawyer, he was doing it for Israel. You know, to try and force Israel to live up to basic legal standards, you know, that you would in any other country, by forcing them to allow him to see a lawyer. He never did, and they stole his passport. A whole bunch of other, you know, injustices. I saw a few other people get sort of beaten up, dragged into back rooms, beaten up pretty bad. I don't know why, but you know, various reasons. And it was just shocking to me that a country that America supports with money and diplomacy does something like that. So
I'd be very interested to know how many people were on board the cruise ship, how many were Americans, and exactly what arms were carrying. Can you sort of list some of the
Can you repeat the question? We couldn't hear.
sure, the makeup of the Challenger 1, the boat I was on. Challenger 1 was an American flagship, and the Americans on board were myself, do you remember Kathy's last name? Kathy. Yeah, a woman from California named Kathy, and the other American was U.S. Colonel Ann Wright, who was a U.S. ambassador since the Johnson administration, and she resigned in protest to the Iraq War. So those are the Americans on board. 17 people on board, five of them crew. And the cargo on board, we had a few of the organizers from the Free Gaza movement on board. I guess they're the closest thing to cargo that we had. They're the organizers, and they were sort of the lead on the chatter with the Israeli Navy. So we had, you know, actually initially we had members of German Parliament on board, and Nobel Peace Prize winner. They had been transferred. Huwaida, yeah, she was the organizer from Free Gaza. So we spent a long night together in the wheelhouse, and she was falling asleep, sitting up, waiting for them to radio her. So. And she was one of them who had a bag put over her head and dragged around the boat, and she's very good.
I don't remember if it was Ann Wright or you told me that when the Israeli commandos boarded the ship, they targeted media, Turkish media. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I don't know exactly where the media was from that they targeted, but I read in 2 different papers that when they boarded, there were journalists pointing cameras at them to take pictures of the action, and they were shot between the eyes for using a camera. The guy who ran the internet cafe on the boat, you know, where all the journalists got their internet access, he was sitting at his desk. They went in and they shot him right at his desk. So again, another clear attempt to suppress the media. I didn't know all this over on the Challenger 1, and I was the only one with a camera pointing it at them, so I didn't realize, I guess foolishly, what kind of danger I was putting myself in by, you know, running toward the action to take a picture. But again, I erred on the side of safety and saving the photo, so I was back more than I was forward when they were actually able to get a clean shot on me. So I guess that was a good thing.
Kevin O'Keefe has a statement on the internet. Kevin O'Keefe is a former U.S. Marine. He's married to a Palestinian woman. I know all this because he has a statement on the internet.
Ken O'Keefe?
Yeah, well, Kevin O'Keefe, right. And his statement was that he rushed to the front because he was a former Marine who was 18 years of Marines, been out of the U.S. for 100 years or something. He said that when the first commando hit the deck, there was already a dead body lying on the deck. He said by the time the second commando was on the deck, there was 3 bodies. He said he took a rifle away from one commando, a pistol away from another. The question would be, did he mention any of this to you? Maybe he wouldn't have felt safe in that setting talking about this stuff.
No, when we were in Beersheba, he talked about that pretty thoroughly, how they, I forgot to mention that, thanks for mentioning it. They took the guns away from them, and I think they got rid of the ammunition and threw it out, or they threw the gun into the water completely. Some people suggested using them, but that was quickly argued away, so they wound up not using them. So.
Yes, ma'am.
What was the experience of being in prison with these folks from Turkey who had lost friends? I mean,
you know, people had to watch the assassinations and then have to cope with it in jail together. Was there much conversation in the morning?
There was pretty emotional moment of silence.
This guy was lying.
And
Could everybody hear that question? No.
what the question was, what was it like being in prison with these Turkish passengers who had just seen, you know, one of their fellow passengers, 9 of their fellow passengers murdered. And I was just saying that it was, you know, pretty emotional to see, you know, the reports were sort of trickling in. Did you see this? Did you see that? Or so and so. They quickly pieced together, you know, who had died and who was still missing. Yeah, they had a moment of silence and they were praying a lot. For what it's worth, the guards didn't really seem to respect their praying. But, you know, they had a few moments of silence and, you know, just trying to put all the pieces together, share stories as much as possible, and piece together sort of the reality of what had happened and sort of corroborate stories. Do you have a question back then?
Yeah. Israel said that if you had gone into their ports, they would have delivered the goods to them, which obviously is on their ban list anyway. Have they made good on any of that?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Hamas refuses to let it in.
And Hamas has refused to let the humanitarian supplies in as well until the blockade's lifted. So it's sort of all or nothing with them. I should back up and note that I'm not here to support Hamas, just as, you know, I wouldn't be here to support Israel. I'm not political. I'm pro-human rights. I'm not pro-Israel. I am pro-Israel. I'm pro-Palestine. So.
Yes, sir. You wanted to speak again. Go ahead.
Do you think there's any reason to doubt that, you know, because 5 votes were taken peaceably, that there's something weird that happened on that 6th vote? I mean, that soldiers would all of a sudden come down shooting doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, I know there's no video except the Israeli video, but still.
Yeah, that's another good question. I think that had the most passengers by far, and I think they were scared of that. You know, to go on and, I don't know how many, 500 passengers maybe? 600 on board that boat. To go onto a boat full of 600 people, I'd be scared. You know, if I was the commander on that mission, I'd be nervous about the success of my mission and the lives of my soldiers. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were, you know, advised to use a different level of force than, for example, on the boat full of 17 peace activists on an American flagship. So different levels of force based on the 2 boats.
You mean to come down shooting first?
Come down shooting first.
All right, so shoot first and then try to calm everything down.
Kill people and then calm down. Yes, sir. This gentleman right here.
I don't know if they were attacked first or not.
Who was the last vote?
Actually, no, I hadn't heard about the sentencing or the fact that Hamas was not going to commit, if indeed the contingency had come up where Israel had accepted the goods, Hamas was not going to let them into the ports until the blockade was lifted. What was the logistics that, presuming everything had worked out, what was the logistics on landfall? Have you coordinated with Hamas to upload this, download the...
I don't know if the coordination was with Hamas. I know there was coordination and we had an invite into Gaza.
Oh, okay. So there was logistics, little support on ground to get this stuff on land and distributed.
Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Yeah. Which I imagine there was some coordination with Hamas because, you know, they're the political. I think the initial number was based on how many people were either seen killed or missing, and then as they identified people, the number came down. The last I heard, there were, I think, 2 people that hadn't even been identified yet, and they didn't know where they were. I don't know if they have yet, so I don't want to speculate, but there was some speculation that it's possible that they had gone overboard, but I don't know. I imagine if that hadn't been the case, I would have heard about it by now, so I think they've been accounted for and they're safe.
Yes, sir. And we just had a film guy ask, would people please stand when they're asking a question?
You took still pictures and video. This gentleman, you know, has his opinion of what happened. You have your eyewitness testimony, and people give testimony in terms of what happened. What are your best pictures or your best video in terms of documenting something egregious happened?
I was in the Challenger, and I wasn't able to document anything like that. There are videos on YouTube I just saw one this afternoon. That shows the aftermath. Yeah. Okay, I didn't know if that was released publicly, but Yara and Sarah had some footage.
What did you describe Democracy Now! Yesterday?
Was it on Democracy Now! Okay, so that'd be a good source.
Is what?
Okay, they had footage up close. They had
That went to the
HD cameras this big, and they were up close, and they documented the entire action. And the cameraman, his name's Sir John, he had an SD card, same one I had, and he wound up hiding it actually in the same place. which we found out in prison, so it's kind of a funny story.
What do we Google?
I don't know, does anybody know Democracy Now? Okay. Democracy Now, and probably Mavi Mamra, M-A-V-I-M-A-R-M-A-R-A.
And all AWDA, what do? A-L-A-W-D-A. There's a gentleman back right there. Would you stand up, please?
How often do these types of missions happen, and have any, or how many actually get through?
They've done it several times. The first few got through without any confrontation. The first one to have a confrontation, I believe, was 2 missions ago, the Dignity that I was talking about, when that one was rammed and eventually sunk. And then the last one, they were boarded, all detained for 6 days, and then released. So it seems like their new plan is to just stop it outright. It used to be, we'll let this boat full of a little bit of humanitarian supplies go through without any conflict, and then they're increasing their efforts to stop and discourage.
Follow-up?
Yes, sir.
I heard on the radio news yesterday that Israel was going to allow some food aid to now enter Gaza, and the newscaster said that the type of aid that was going to be allowed was going to be sodas, potato chips, candy, and all food that really is really quite bad for you.
We'll have a bunch of fat Palestinians.
I really saw that as, on the one hand, a effort on the part of Israel to try to make it appear that they were showing flexibility, but clearly, on the other hand, just more of the same in terms of giving people only the worst kind of stuff possible.
I hadn't seen the list of foods, but it's interesting because that's true. That's not what they need. They need cement to rebuild their homes that have been blown up. They need, access to medicine. They need to not have their, crops plowed under. They need to not have their fishermen's boats shot for fishing. That's really what they need.
Bill.
Israel has insisted that the people of Gaza are not suffering from lack of adequate food and nutrition. Just last night that, in fact, they are receiving 25% of what they were receiving before the blockade began. The population of Gaza is about half children. Many of them are now stunted for lack of nutrition for the last several years. Blockade's been going about 4 years now.
Yes.
Did you ever actually end up talking to anybody from the U.S. Embassy after your release? Or if so,
After my release, yeah, I did talk to 3 representatives while I was in Greece prison.
What kind of interaction did you have?
They did a great job of getting information to get that back to the family, which was great of them. As far as negotiating to get me released, it was the Turkish government that ultimately was the reason I wasn't there longer. Then when I was released and I got to Istanbul, they tracked me down at my hotel and they wanted a full, detailed outline of everything that had happened and any complaints I had. We're still working with them to get our equipment back. I don't know if I mentioned my laptop, my camera, my BlackBerry, everything was stolen. So everybody's things were stolen. So we're working with them to file formal complaints for that.
Did you detect any kind of response that our government might have in terms of our policy towards that action? In terms of
Encouraging, discouraging?
No.
Yeah, I know I'm calling on this guy 3 or 4 times, but he's the only one who's
That's unfair. But I'm just going to ask questions.
Democracy is good.
I'm a physician. I'm also a photographer. I haven't seen any photo evidence or any medical study or data that shows that there's starvation or malnutrition in Gaza. I'm interested in knowing if there is. I'd like to see it because I'm an open-minded
Called the
guy.
Goldstone Report. It's filed by the
I'm an
UN.
open-minded
Thank you.
guy. All right.
He doesn't want
And
to
then
hear the
secondly,
Goldstone
my question
report.
for you
He
is,
doesn't read anything.
you know, as a person who's trying to document this, I understand, do you feel that there are some ways in which the Gazans could get this problem of the blockade and all this other stuff resolved fairly quickly? Is there anything that you can think of or anyone to help resolve this thing? What would it take?
Well, they could vote out Hamas.
B-50 Jews over Tel Aviv.
Is that what you're getting at? They could vote out Hamas, and I think that would solve the problem.
around.
But
You know,
I'd probably vote with them if they wanted to vote out Hamas, to be honest.
Did you hear what he said?
You mentioned earlier in your very interesting report that it was your job. Who hired you for the job? Or was it a self-chosen job?
It was somebody, he lives in France, and he supported the cause, and he wanted the truth to get out there. So he wanted to sort of put somebody on the boat to get the truth out there. Oh, the website is witnessgaza.com is where we're uploading to, and that has a whole bunch of videos and stuff as far as I know. Somebody else is maintaining it, so I haven't seen it in the past couple of days, but witnessgaza.com.
And that's where the photographs are going to be seen as a few hours.
Yeah, probably about tomorrow at some point. All my photos will be available through witnessgaza.com, so you can sort of see my perspective from the challenge.
Yeah, I just wondered if, the VIPs that were on some of those hotels, like former ambassador Ed Pack, who's under 8 presidents, and Colonel Ann Wright, and that Nobel Peace Prize winner from I guess from, no, I think it was from Ireland. Okay. Have they been able to try to get through to get the word out where, because they have credibility, and they were there, and NPAC and Wright were interviewed by Individual Democracy now, days ago, but have they been able to make an impact on the truth as what they saw, because they were there?
I hope so. I know Ann's, I think I was speaking to her, right, Sheila? She's in New York now, and I think she's on her way to DC.
Pack was on Rachel Maddow.
He was, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to check that out. So hopefully, you know, they'll get some attention, you know, bring some credibility to it. But, you know, again, the media is focused on oil spills and Vandersloot, you know, other things that are apparently more important than, you know.
Jack, oh, I'm sorry, just interrupted.
Have you heard anything of the Rachel Corrie in the last couple of days?
Not in the last couple of days. Last I heard that Rachel Corrie was peacefully boarded, taken into Ashdod, and they were going to deliver the aid to Gaza whenever they wanted to let it.
The question is, did you meet Paul LaRudy? He was one of the organizers of the flotilla.
During the attack, he was on the bomb route, I believe. He was on the bomb route. And what I heard was that he either fell over the rail or jumped over the rail to get away, and fell into the water, and he was pulled out of the water by the Israeli Navy, and then he was beaten. So that's the last I heard. And then he was missing for a little while. So have you heard if he's been tracked down? I was CC'd on an email with him, so I'm assuming they did that because he's back. He's back, I think.
Well, what do you feel would have the best result in trying to change the conditions in Israel-Palestine?
Other than doing something like this.
Well, or something like this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I was in contact with a few members of Congress before I went. I don't know if they didn't believe that this is actually what we were doing or didn't care, but there wasn't too much of a response, which is too bad. But yeah, I guess that's all I can say about that. I think I don't know if a random phone call here and there would change their opinion or get their attention. I think going to their office might get their attention a little bit more, doing it in a polite, respectful, thought-out way, lay out some facts, and then give them a clear plan of action or something they can do rather than say, you need to end the blockade. Well, what do they do with that? and then give a clear plan of action. You can speak to so-and-so at the UN to get the Goldstone report, get trials for the Goldstone report at the UN. That's a clear plan of action. It's something that could be an act on. One thing about the list of passengers, somebody else found on one of the soldiers, he had pictures of some of the high-profile passengers on board. In other words, the people who got to shoot, members of parliament, Nobel Prize winners, because...
What are the websites for these pictures and movies? Is it Democracy Now! Again?
Guardian, that's the...
Guardian, I'll find these videos and pictures. Guardian and Democracy.
The Guardian, you can go to Google Guardian.
Guardian.co.uk.
And you'll find it there.
Yeah, go.
Well, what's your context? What's your history? The reason I ask that is because I got involved in the Free Palestine movement because of being involved in the Free South African movement. So I'm wondering, was there something in your church? Was there something when you were attending school? One of your friends? How have you gotten to this point?
Yeah, I don't go to church, so I guess it wasn't my church. Unfortunately, I don't. But I guess I've always sort of been pro-human rights, and after spending some time in South Africa, I saw a lot of parallels between what I heard. I lived in post-apartheid South Africa, but I saw a lot of parallels between the apartheid in South Africa and then what I heard about what's happening in Gaza. And then I went to a conference with Noam Chomsky and Desmond Tutu, and they're speaking about the parallels between apartheid in South Africa and apartheid in Gaza. So it sort of solidified in my head that that's...
Is that the 1987 thing?
No, it was just a few years ago.
Excuse me, 2007,
2007.
down in Boston, right?
Yeah.
I just put that out.
Okay,
All boats are now in Israel's control,
the port of Ashdod, as far as I know.
and all their cargo and everything.
And all the cargo, and they claim that they're going to let the cargo through after they search it, which, since they didn't allow cement in the first place, the cement probably won't make it, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay,
So,
one more.
and they did let me keep my passport and my wallet, so at least I was able to sort
Get
of...
your glasses back?
I never got them back, so I'm blind. I had contacts. Wanted to know all the details, and he wanted to know where we were going, when we were going to be there, what he could do to help. It was just logistics and my communication on my part that I wasn't able to actually talk to Congresswoman Pingree before we left. But I basically said, when we're detained, please do everything you can to get us released, and we're not going to be able to contact you most likely. But Willie was really receptive, so if anybody's inclined, if you could call Congresswoman Pingree and just thank her, thank him for their help. Oh, I have, but if you guys could do the same, that'd go a long way to show, that in the future, the more helpful they are, people recognize that and